Hi and welcome along to our latest edition of Get in the Habit podcast, and also on YouTube as well. So if you haven't seen us before, get yourself over to YouTube and see us in the flesh, as it was. Today, I'm joined with my co-host, of course, Sue Allsworth, and we have Lyn Meadowcroft with us today as well. Hiya, Lynn.
Hi, Dave. Lovely to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
So I didn't even invite you. Sue did. I'm thinking,
thank you, Sue.
Who's Lyn Meadowcroft? I don't even know. So Lynn, tell us a bit about yourself. Come on.
Okay, so this is a bit where you cringe, you know, it's like, oh, yeah. Tell me a bit about yourself. Right, okay.
Make it interesting, go on.
I'll do my best. So Lyn Meadowcroft, positivity pioneer, empowering women to be seen, heard and valued in all areas of their life, and to acknowledge themselves and honor themselves for the fabulous, fabulous women that they are. So that's the work that I do. Heal Your Life licensed teacher, so based on the philosophies of Louise Hay. And I'm doing all of this because I didn't know about this years ago, and it was only no longer 12 years when I discovered all this. So I'm 62, so it took me up until the age of 50 before I realized that there was actually an alternative way of living to the way that I lived. And the way that I'd always lived up to the age of 50 was thinking that it was everybody else's fault, and, you know, and I was in a place of pain and suffering and blaming and shaming and never taking responsibility for me or myself or my life.
Right.
I know. And we met when I was in that moment of my life, didn't we, Lynn? Because you were my assistant on when I was doing my Heal Your Life training. And back in 2014, I do believe. So doesn't time fly?
Wow, it's amazing.
So quickly. Yeah. And you've and we've stayed in touch and over the years. Facebook is a wonderful thing at times, and staying in touch. So I know you've changed, as you say, you know, at 50 suddenly the light was showing on to you to say, oh, there's a different way, there's a more positive way. And yeah, you have to work at that. But how did you, so you went from one habit of a life, so how did you create a new habit, a life, you know, a habit of life?
Well, what the pivotal moment for me was when I was almost having a nervous breakdown, and I was in a really bad place. I was getting divorced after 18 years. So I then became a single parent with a 12-year-old and a 15-year-old, and I'd been physically abused at work, and, you know, it was a voluntary organization. So going through all of this hearing and tribunals and all of that kind of stuff. And one of my sisters gave me one of Louise's book, The Power is Within You. And so when I read it, I couldn't stop crying, because I thought, oh my goodness, I can change things. It doesn't have to be the way that I'm living. You know, I've got the power to change this. And I never knew that before. I never knew that option existed. So I started to apply some of the philosophies out of the book, and my life began to change. And I thought, this stuff works. You know, this is I can see changes here. And I just thought people need to know about this. So I Googled if there was any training, and lo and behold, I find that there's, you know, Heal Your Life teacher training in the UK. So I don't have to travel to America. And so I did the training in 2011. And then as a result of that, so did the training, then started offering workshops. And then I did the coaching training the year after and started coaching, but also still doing the daily work myself. So not saying, right, I've read this book. I see this so often, you know, with people. Well, I've read the book, so now I'm fixed. And now I know what I'm doing, and nothing can faze me. And it's like, flipping heck, are you having a laugh? It's the universe, as I've discovered this week, still throws you these huge curveballs. Like, there you go, Lynn. You know, let's deal with this one, shall we? So, but it's knowing, it's having that inner knowing now and that knowledge and taking full responsibility for how I show up and how I deal with things.
And I mean, I don't know, this is a question for you, Lynn, because I've experienced a nervous breakdown in my 20s, and I was one of those people that read all the books and it was like, well, the tablet didn't work, why has my life not changed? You know, the book, I swallowed the book, why hasn't it worked? But when you've been to that place, down the rabbit hole, as I call it, you certainly not necessarily now, but in the early days when you're changing life, did you have a fear of slipping back down that rabbit hole and not being able to get yourself back out? And whereas maybe at that point you had that fear, whereas now, do you still fear that? Or even if you do go down that rabbit hole again, because obviously life is going to throw us some curveballs, do you just have that faith now that you know you can get yourself out of it? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's absolutely true, Sue. And it's so spot on that what you've just shared, because the trust has built up more now and the faith is stronger now. So at the beginning, or by, slipping back into old patterns, slipping back into old patterns, slipping back into old patterns. But then the awareness got greater. And I've realized that, this is what's happening. You're going back into an old pattern here. Okay, so stop and let's reevaluate this. So that's what I was doing. But now it's because my trust, honestly, the trust that I have in the universe is 1,000,000%. I just trust the universe. I have so much faith. And I know that things happen for a reason. So because of my inner strength now, and calling upon the faith and the trust and all of that, and that's much, much deeper, then yeah, of course, I still find myself, I can still have those old thought patterns where I go back into, nobody's perfect, I'm not perfect. I'll go back, but I'm more aware of it sooner. Whereas in the old days, it took me a while to realize it was like maybe a few days in, and I just thought, hang on a minute, what's going on here? And I'm going into this old pattern. So the awareness is much more now. So yeah,
we can catch ourselves. And I mean, I sort of look at people, I suppose, in a way that I know that I was a comatose human, as I call myself, someone that was just going along in life, didn't know any different, shall we say, very rigid within my upbringing, I suppose, and that kind of thing, and didn't realize there was a different way of thought, and slowly I became from my comatose state to sort of and you go up through the stages. And even now, I'm taking a bit of time out this year, because I didn't last year. And you use two words that really resonate, and there's a third one that I add to that, which is most people who know me, it's my mantra. It's what grounds me when I have those moments. If I catch myself, like you say, Lynn, it's like, what brings you back into this moment now? And you said two of them: trust, faith, and then I'd add surrender to that, because those two don't come into play until you then put that surrender in, 100%. So I very resonate. But it is when you've been down that dark, slippery tunnel, the dead end tunnel, or what you think is the dead end tunnel, and you do get yourself slowly start to get yourself back out of it. You do always worry to some degree, until you learn to trust yourself. And I think that's one of the big, first questions that we ask as coaches sometimes, isn't it, Lynn? One of the first things we say to people is, do you trust yourself? It's not whether you like yourself or not, it's, do you trust yourself? Because if you don't, you've got your power's outside of you, isn't it?
Yeah. And it is about, it is that trusting in yourself, because we have, it is about standing in your power and trusting in yourself and knowing that everything is you. It is all down to you and how you deal with things and how you show up and acknowledging yourself, but also honoring your feelings and how your feelings, and being able to dig deep into that strength and that inner strength and that courage, and asking for help if you need help. And I never used to ask for help because I was brought up believing that was, you know, that wasn't the thing to do. You got on with it. You know, and I remember being told many times, you've made your bed, now lie in it. Oh, thanks. You know, so yeah, thanks for that.
It's great advice, isn't it?
Yeah. So then you just get on with it, and you deal with it. And I remember when I had my sons, when I had Sam, he's 33 now. But when I had Sam, it changed my life forever. Having this baby changed my life forever. And I didn't realize how much my life was going to change having a baby. And then when the second baby came along, Billy, and I really struggled with a toddler and with this baby, and I was really struggling. I couldn't ask for help, because then that would mean that I wasn't a good mum, and I would be a failure. So I never asked for help. And there's no way now, if I need help, I ask for help now.
God, wow, that's amazing. Actually, it's quite an insight into a young person's mind. That, you know, if you have a baby and then you got another baby, and then you can't ask for help, you're really in a stuck place, aren't you? And it just amazes me, is that how is it that when we get older, we kind of get wiser? I know that kind of, it's a bit of a cliche, you know, they say the old wise owl and all this sort of stuff. But, you know, when we do get older and we realize this stuff, why don't we realize it when we're young? Why don't we teach this to our youngsters? How is it that, you know, we go through school years and we learn about geography and history and stuff like that, but we don't really know about ourselves? It's crazy, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. And my greatest desire is that they would put this on the curriculum. That, you know, it doesn't matter to me about geography. I remember my geography teacher once writing in my geography homework book, we had to draw a pothole. And he said, he wrote down, and I remember it very clearly, that he said that my pothole looked like a 3-cut bra. And I asked him, how does he know what a 3-cut bra it looks like? You know, so this is the kind of stuff, and
it is.
It's not pointless to me. I remember being in maths and being sat at the back of the classroom chatting away, because that was my worst subject in the world. And I had no interest in it. And I remember the maths teacher writing up the Pythagoras Theory on the blackboard. And because I wasn't listening, I was chatting, making arrangements for the weekend, you know, like where we're going and all of that stuff. And he threw this board rubber at me and he said, right, okay, Lynn, just tell me what I've written on this board here. What does all this mean? And I had a look. I remember looking at it thinking, I haven't a clue. And I just said to him, I've no idea. And I said, but why do I have to learn this? Because nobody's ever going to ask me what the Pythagoras Theory means. And you know what? Nobody's ever asked me. So
well, let me ask you now, Lynn, what does the Pythagoras Theory mean? Come on, this is your starring moment.
And you know what? Right now, I would go,
yeah.
Because maths was not my
You're right.
Lynn.
The amazing thing is, you're in Bolton and I grew up in Essex, but it sounds like we went to the same school, you know? I think that was just schools at the time, and maybe it's changed. Who knows? Maybe it hasn't. I don't have any dealings with schools, and you know, I don't know any young school kids now, so I don't know what they learn now at school. But maybe, you know, they learn about themselves. Maybe they don't.
I think even if there's certain things that we can learn, even looking back, there'd be certain things that I certainly I would have loved to have learned. What I would have loved to have learned in school was acceptance, forgiveness, compassion, not judging, all of these things, because they're all tied in with our emotions, blame, resentment, so that we can distinguish between all of these different feelings and emotions. And certainly when I had over half a year of school in my second year, because I had glandular fever, I didn't miss the fact that I didn't learn much about fractions, you know. There's always a silver lining, as you say.
Yeah. And I do wonder now, actually, I mean, we're joking about, you know, when we went to school, and it was a few years back, wasn't it? But I wonder now, with all the new technology and stuff, if they embrace that in schools, or they still do the old, you know, writing on the board and so on, and that kind of stuff. Because, you know, years ago, I used to be a trainer, and I remember when I was a trainer, there was one incident with this young guy, and we always had a rule, like no sort of like using your phones in the room, you know, while he was training. And I said to him, look, what you doing, mate? I said, you know, you're using your phone there. What, you're messaging or something? He said, no, I'm taking down notes. And he was actually making the notes on his phone. Yeah, whereas other people would have a notepad and a pen, he was doing it on his phone. And I thought, yeah, wow, that's a great use of technology. He's always got it. It's there on his phone. It can save it to the cloud, et cetera, you know? And it was like, well, yeah, we should embrace this technology a bit more then, you know? So then it was, okay, you can use your phones as long as you're going to use them for something that's relevant within the room, you know? Mm. And it always struck me that, I wonder if they do that in schools now. Do they use technology in such a good way that it embraces the new way? You know, another incident when I was, you know, a trainer again. A guy, I said to him, "You got a pen and paper?" No, he said, "What do I need a pen and paper for?" I said, "To write down girls' phone numbers." He went, "I just put it on my phone, mate." You know, he's like, yeah, again, he's like,
it's certainly good for the environment. Let's face it, because it must save on paper. Yeah, but I mean, we'll have to try. I will try and hunt down, Dave, someone who has got young children, so we can pose. I will go on the hunt. If anyone's listening to this and is a young, well, not necessarily a young mother, but a mother of young humans, then and feel that you've got something to contribute, then pop on. So Lynn, coming back, I know right now you're actually, it's a good moment to talk. So where you were saying how you go down that rabbit hole, life has got curveballs and all of this. Now I know you don't have to say what at the moment, but I know that life has just given you a curveball right now. So would the old Lynn have viewed this curveball of, oh my God, what am I going to do? This is the life and universe throwing shit at me again, blah, blah, blah. How are you coping with that curveball right now?
Okay, so yeah, I'm happy to share. The curveball is that I've just found out this week on Tuesday afternoon, to be precise. My landlady threw this bombshell at me that because of various reasons that I'm not going to go into, that the house that I've lived in very, very happily for 10 years, she's selling it. So which means that I'm going to have to look for somewhere else and all of that kind of stuff. So that's been a massive bombshell. It came out of the blue. And so if this would have happened years ago, I would definitely have gone into panic mode. So I would have been panicking. I would have been running around like a headless chicken. I would have been living in fear, but I would have also gone in victim. So I would have been the victim, you know, and I would have been telling everybody my poor victim story, you know, poor Lynn, look what this woman's done to me. So I would have been blaming and shaming my landlady. You know, she'd have been the wicked witch from the West and it would have been all her fault. And she's a horrible person. How could she do this to me? Because look, I'm so nice and lovely. So blah, blah, blah. So all of the victim stuff would have come out. But instead, it's before I knew that I was having a conversation with her. So I got myself ready before I had the conversation, did the deep breathing and the aligning and all of that kind of stuff. Listen to what she had to say. So I was fully present with her, with what she was sharing. And I thanked her for being so open and honest and transparent with me. Because she didn't have to, you know, she didn't have to tell me all of the reasons why. And then after the phone call, that's when what she'd said hit me. And so then I started to get emotional and tip out. So I just allowed those feelings, you know, it's just allowing those feelings and feeling those feelings and honoring those feelings. And then I started looking for houses straight away, you know, because it's like, you've got to take the action now. And then I realized that, hang on a minute, you're going into distraction here. So I came back and was feeling the feelings, did some journaling and allowed those feelings to come up again. And then on Wednesday, I went into massive distraction and I went into town to do some shopping, and I just felt teary, and I just thought, Lynn, you've gone into distraction. This is a huge distraction. Let's go home and let's face what's happening and feel these feelings. So it was very much, it's been a week of really tipping out, and honoring the feelings that I've been feeling, accepting what is, but also knowing that the universe has got some divine plan going on here. And when one door closes, another opens. And even despite knowing all of that, it's still to know that I am human at the end of the day, and these feelings need to be processed. So it's just been honoring and being very kind and gentle with myself this week.
Yeah,
That's really good thing to do.
I can appreciate that as well.
Yeah.
You know, we're not about bottling up and shoving down the emotions. You know, we're not Vulcans. You know, I know now why I really used to want to be a Vulcan, because it was just seemed like such a simplistic way of life without having to deal with all the emotions, which can be really confusing for some of us. And yeah, it is about, you know, you're allowed to be, although you didn't need to be with her on your own, you're allowed to have that moment of anger. You're allowed to have that moment of victimhood for a moment, if that makes sense, in your own. You don't have to share that, because if you then shared that and put that onto her, the whole conversation, the whole energy of it would have been totally different. But that doesn't mean to say in your own private time you're allowed to have. And I remember doing this with you, this exercise with you actually in the training, Lynn. We had a pillow bashing moment together, didn't we?
We did.
And it's still used to this day. You know, I visualize you sitting there and I'm like, rah, 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 with a few swear words probably chucked in for a good measure. But we still have to honor that. But then we can move past that as well, isn't it? It's about that accept. It's that A word again, Dave. It's coming up quite a bit lately.
Acceptance is big today for you. You're out there with it, you know.
And it's that accepting what is. You know, I can't change any of this. It's this out of, and this is the control thing, isn't it? You know, when people want to control everything that's happening, it's not possible to control everything that's happening. So it is accepting what is, and just knowing that I know that this is all happening for a reason, and I know that I'm going to be absolutely fine. And it doesn't matter where I end up living. It doesn't matter if I live here or I live 10 mile, 20 mile, 30 mile, or even in a different country. It's wherever I am is my home, you know. It's that
home's within, isn't it? Let's face it.
Yeah. So, and then the other thing that comes into the equation is the attachment that we get to things. So when we've got attachment to things or people or situations,
or building,
letting go of that attachment, isn't it? And that's where attachment can be quite tricky, you know, and quite painful for people.
It's weird because, you know, we get attached to brick and mortar.
I know, yeah.
Don't we? And at the end of the day, we get attached. It's brick and mortar. What we create in that brick and mortar can be created in any brick and mortar edificio. I went into Spanish then. Building. Don't know where that came from. But it is. We get attached to what is in theory brick and mortar, and the home. You know, it's a house that you live in. It's you create the home, and in theory, you know, there's memories that go with those things, but memories stay with us, don't they? And things, and it is, as you say, Lynn, it's you've got to close some doors sometimes, don't you? But it's living in that limbo, we feel unsafe, where the fear and the doubts and the old whispers and ghosts of what we used to think, as I call them, creep in, is when we're in that limbo land. We're not feeling, there's a part of us that doesn't feel safe.
Yeah.
And so that's when all the other bits, the fear and that comes in, because it in theory, that's what it's there to do, to try and help us, isn't it?
But Lynn, do you have any tips for anyone who's listening today who may be going through similar things to yourself? You know, I mean, you give us a brilliant scenario just then, but, you know, you got like, I don't know, maybe 3 top tips for someone who has a bit of a thing in their life, you know, you might want to call it trauma or whatever, you know, something in their life that's causing them to feel anguish. Do you have any top tips that you could share with us?
Okay, so what I would say, first of all, is for people to just realize that no matter what they're going through right now, to know that they have gone through and got through everything that they've already got through in their life already. So they've already got through so much stuff already that they may have already forgotten about. You know, it might have happened 10 years ago or 5 years ago or 2 years ago, but you've got through life so far. So if you've got through all of the stuff that life's thrown at you already, you can get through what you're going through right now. So that's the first thing I would say, is that you will get through whatever it is you're going through. You will get through it because you've done it before, and you will get through it. The second thing I would say is to just really honor how you're feeling. Don't suppress it. Don't pretend it's not there. Don't deny what you're feeling, because if you suppress your feelings, they'll just emerge later on as, you know, illness or disease. And we know that because of the mind-body connection and all of the research and studies that have been done around that. So really honor how you're feeling, and just know that it's okay to feel those feelings. It's absolutely okay to feel those feelings. And then thirdly is that just reach out. Don't ever think that whatever you're going through, you have to go through on your own, because you don't have to go through it on your own. You know, there's other people that have either gone through something that you're going through or something similar. And there's people who will help, and there is support out there. So always reach out and ask for help or support. And that support can come in many, many different ways. It could just be somebody listening to what you've got to say at the end of a form, you know, and that is fantastic support. Yeah. So just reach out and ask for support.
There's some really good tips there, actually. Yeah, I like that. Thanks very much, Lynn. Good.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, I think we're coming towards the end of our session for today. We like to keep it sort of 20, 30 minutes, and I think we're about 30 minutes today, which is amazing, really. Been lovely speaking to you, Lynn, and sharing some of your stories from the past, the present, and indeed your future. And whatever your future holds, I hope you have a really good one, and make it what you want it to be.
We'll get you back on, Lynn, when you're in your new house and see how your habits gone.
Yeah. See where you are then, you know, what you're doing, and see what life threw at you then, you know, because that's what happens, isn't it? Life happens, you know, and it's how we deal with life along the way, you know. Yeah, it really is, you know. It's how we deal with life and what we do, and keeping that positive attitude. And it sounds like you've got this really, really positive attitude now. And I love that. That's brilliant. It's been great talking to you today, Lynn. Really good.
It's been great to be here. Thank you both so much. I've enjoyed every minute of it.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you. And for our listeners and our viewers, don't forget to join us again next week for another Get in the Habit podcast, and Get in the Habit on YouTube as well. So make sure you get in the habit to like and subscribe, and join us every week. See you next week.
Take care, everyone, and thanks again, Lynn.
You're welcome. Take care, everybody. Lots of love.